Bonjour everyone, I hope you are well. Today I'm inside next to the fire. It's winter, Australian winter, and I'm a bit cold in myself, so I stay cozy with you. So we're going, just today, this is the new moon in Gemini. It's happening just on my birthday. So my birthday exactly yesterday, but nevertheless. So this video is dedicated to the new moon in Gemini, which occurs on June 15 today at 24 degrees 2 minutes of Gemini, 12:53 minutes p.m. Brisbane time, Australia. So this lunation is particularly interesting because it acts as a mental reset, and it also marks a much larger transition that will accompany us throughout our Australian winter. During this lunation, the sun and moon meet again, as they do every month. This time at 24 degrees of Gemini, so it is always interesting to look at your birth chart to see where these 24 degrees of Gemini are located, and also which house or area of life is involved, because that is where something resets. That is where a new seed can be planted. Around this new moon, when we look at the chart, we see the sun, the moon, and Uranus in Gemini. So this indicates already something fast-paced, dynamic, and lively. And to this is added a strong concentration of Neptune, Saturn, Aries, and Chiron in Aries, which is another fast-paced sign, pushing for action and immediate responsiveness. And among all this, there is only one presence in Earth, Mars in Taurus, and this makes Mars very precious and important for us. The ruler of this new moon in Gemini is Mercury, which is at 18 degrees of Cancer. So Mercury is directing this new moon. And what is more, is out of bounds, a phase that ends just on the day, today, of this new moon. A planet out of bounds means that it is outside of its usual latitude, that is within 23 degrees north or south of the ecliptic. The planet's expression then becomes more extreme, more intense, and sometimes more destabilizing. And therefore, everything related to Gemini, communication, thought, information, exchange, decisions, all of this is amplified, accelerated, and sometimes becomes uncontrollable. So June can give a feeling of considerable acceleration, a mental overload, an overload of information coming from everywhere. The impression of having many decisions to make quickly, and perhaps difficulty to stay centered. Nowadays, we are living with a mind that is constantly stimulated. Our modern era is overstimulating and tends to activate our hyper-intellectual state, which incidentally leads many of us to forms of burnout. There are too many possibilities, too much information, an overabundance of fake news and AI intrusions that inundate us in our lives. It is too much. Therefore, this new moon invites you to make space in your mind, to clarify what truly deserves your attention, to distinguish the essential from the noise, that incessant inner noise which is not thought. It is agitation, a mental rumination, information colliding in your brain, but it is not actually essential. In fact, this new moon asks you to recognize your mental habits in order to regain control. Because the shadow energy of Gemini is being very scattered and talkative. It is an air sign, mutable, so there's something about it that scatters in all directions and who analyzes without ever concluding. So, sorting through what nourishes your evolution and what needlessly dissipates your energy is very, very important during this lunar cycle. But let's look at the bright side, because that is the one we are meant to consciously activate in our lives. In his higher form, Mercury is the messenger, the one who rereads, who translates, who transmits, and the one who circulates not only ideas but also love and wisdom through communication. Furthermore, Mercury is in Cancer and the Moon is in Gemini. They inhabit the domain of each other, so they are therefore in mutual reception and exchange their energies very easily, because the mutual reception creates a natural cooperation between the two planets' energies. Here, it creates a fluid conversation between thought and feeling, between analysis and intuition. This helps you to be much more flexible, more adaptable, more capable of trusting what feels right to you internally. In fact, this mutual reception calms the excesses of the mind, and so you are invited to return to your heart. Therefore, Gemini is the thought is strongly linked to Cancer, the memory. Intelligent is intuitive, sensitive. Decisions are influenced by emotions and therefore by feelings within you, if you manage to establish a center. Mercury in Cancer seeks the honesty of lived experience, and what is rising to the surface right now are subjects that carry an emotional weight, like memories, legacies, truths that have been silenced, understandings that arrive in successive layers. And this journey of Mercury in Cancer will not be short, because on June 30, Mercury begins his retrograde phase in Cancer, and he will emerge from the shadow of his retrograde motion on the 7th of August. The retrograde begins at the 26th degree of Cancer and goes backward to the 16th degree of Cancer. This means that current active issues will be revisited, explored in greater depth, and reconsidered. Decisions made in June will be re-evaluated, and what seemed settled, but is not quite, will come back to the forefront. So it is important to enter this process consciously. Mercury is traveling very close to Jupiter. In fact, they are in a wide conjunction. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, therefore is all-powerful in this sign and positioned a very few degrees ahead of Mercury. He illuminates the path. What is remarkable is that from November 2025 to March 2026, Jupiter was retrograde over the same zone of the zodiac, the degree 25 to 15 of Cancer. He spent 4 months working deeply on issues relating to your inner world, your emotional heritage, and your roots. And now Mercury is crossing exactly the same territory, but with a much finer, more specific approach. What you began to understand at the end of last year, you will now understand more precisely. Some emotional issues you thought were resolved will come back to the forefront, and Mercury, Jupiter, and Cancer help you do this second work of exploration deeper. And being positioned ahead of Mercury, Jupiter acts as a protective field, like a shield of wisdom. He is our great protector, and he tells you that there is something precious here. There is wisdom, there are important things awaiting you, like breakthroughs, which may resemble the dissolution of certain disproportionate emotional reactions, of certain hypersensitivities inherited from a more distant past. And little by little, this feeling can emerge, which is, I can feel safe with myself. I can feel safe in my own emotional body. That is a gift of Jupiter in Cancer. Mercury in Cancer also forms a wide 10 square with Saturn in Aries. It is a conversation that is ending, but we still can sense that something is stopped, blocked, delayed, and this invites you to reflect. So don't get carried away. It is better to take time to express things, to sit down, to reflect, especially not to say everything that comes to mind without considering the impact those words might have. So there are truths that you need to wait a little longer before speaking them. Saturn here speaks to you of the right time, the opportune moment, and therefore of accepting that sometimes it is not the right time and that restraint has its own reasons and that sometimes it is for the best. And in all this movement of air and mental fire and emotional water, Mars in Taurus is very precious because he represents grounding. Mars in Taurus forms a beautiful dialogue, a sextile to Mercury in Cancer. While Mercury in Cancer is immersed in emotions and the new moon in Gemini activates the mind, well, Mars in Taurus reminds you to return to the essentials. What is real? What works? What deserves your time, your energy? Because Taurus is interested in what is concrete, tangible, and above all, building something durable. So here, this Mercury-Mars sextile calls for simplification, therefore clearer choices. You are invited to clarify, to have more obvious priorities, not to clutter yourself with the superfluous. Mars in Taurus gives you the ability to eliminate what unnecessarily scatters your attention. Because there is currently too much information, too many choices, too many possibilities. Mars in Taurus encourages you to discern what possesses true value, what can take shape in reality, and what you can rely on sustainably. Apart from the South Node in Virgo, he is the only Earth influence in this new moon time. And thus, we clearly see that he acts as a crucial point of equilibrium amidst the intersecting ideas, circulating emotions, and multiplying perspectives. Mars in Taurus reminds us that every vision needs a foundation to take shape. So this energy favors progress, but be patient. It takes time. It is about thoughtful choices, lasting construction. Mars in Taurus understands the value of time. He knows that what is built with consistency will withstand storms, and that the most solid transformations are often those that unfold gently, step by step. In fact, his teaching is quite simple. It is about returning to what connects you to reality, returning to your body, to nature, to the fundamental rhythm of life. What is important is being able to walk, garden, cook, create with your hands, take care of a place or a concrete project, be in the physical world, because when your mind becomes too noisy, your body offers you a point of support. And the body is a space where we can truly find our rightful place. So in the tumult of information, demands, and the vast array of possibilities, Mars in Taurus invites you to ask yourself where you wish to invest your vital energy. What truly deserves your attention? What nourishes your life in a tangible way? What projects, relationships, or aspiration possess enough value to receive your energy? These are important questions to ask yourself at this time. So this new moon does not just offer us new perspectives. She invites us to make conscious choices, to recognize what truly matters to us and to direct our energy toward what is destined to grow, take root, and bear fruit over time. Another interesting aspect is Jupiter in Cancer, which forms a square with Chiron. Chiron in Aries, located at the very last degree, the 29th degree of Aries. We are now approaching a particularly strong and intense time of the year with Chiron's imminent entry into Taurus and Jupiter into Leo. So Chiron is at 29 degrees, that famous honorific degree known as the degree of fate, which is a degree of transition, of the end of a cycle, therefore of maturity, of full power. Chiron is about to leave Aries and enter Taurus on June 19. He has learned all the lessons of Aries and faced a final test here before moving into Taurus. We are therefore facing the culmination of a process that has been ongoing since the entrance of Chiron in Aries in 2018. So this 2018, Chiron, the wounded healer, has asked you to work on what touches you most deeply, most directly. That is your identity, your body, your self-confidence, and your ability to assert yourself. Assertiveness is the ability to stand up for oneself without aggression. During his transit in Aries, Chiron has acted as a revealer, illuminating the places where you had strayed from your true nature. Chiron has opened a path of awareness, allowing you to break free from what kept you separate from yourself. Finally, Jupiter plays a crucial role here. In Cancer, he amplifies inner life, feelings, emotional memories, and deep needs. In fact, his square to Chiron acts like a spotlight, enlarging what needs to be seen so that nothing remains in the shadows. Jupiter gives scope to the shift in consciousness at work. It shows you with great clarity what seeks to evolve, what needs to be recognized, and what aspires to find its rightful place. With this Jupiter-Chiron square, we arrive at a moment where everything converges toward a much wider opening. It is as if we are at the delta of all the rivers that join the great ocean. What has been understood along the way of these rivers now seeks to integrate into a much greater vision of oneself. So, with Chiron at 29 degrees, about to enter Taurus, you are invited to recognize what has transformed within you over the past few months in order to discover with greater clarity and simplicity who you have become. In this lunar cycle, Uranus in Gemini is still squaring the lunar nodes, now forming an intense exact T-square pattern. The nodes represent the evolutionary direction of the soul, the collective soul. So they show us where we are going as humanity. So in this T-square where Uranus represents rupture, epiphanies, sudden change, something unexpected is intervening in the trajectory we thought we were following. As if the universe wants to change course, to move on to something else. It is really inviting you to reconsider and to show you that there are other possible paths. You are not obligated to do what seems inevitable. You can surprise yourself. You can do things differently. The South Node in Virgo represents all our habits. And of course, you can rely on what you know. But with Uranus, you can also start something new. And the North Node in Pisces, it calls us towards something vaster, more mystical. There is a spiritual creative dimension here that requires letting go of all certainties, to welcome something that won't necessarily be controlled, but to which it is important to remain connected and above all to be connected to the heart, to our feelings. In this lunar cycle, Venus is also very interesting. She has just entered Leo and announces the beginning of a major astrological sequence, which will develop throughout our Australian winter. Venus plays a somewhat pioneer role because it is the first personal planet to venture into this Leo territory, which Jupiter, the Sun, and Mercury will in turn traverse during the months of July, August. So Venus is already experiencing what these planets will experience afterward, successively. What is remarkable is that Venus has already preceded the slow-moving planets Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, as if to facilitate their entry into a new territory, a new sign. In December 2024, she preceded Pluton's entry into Aquarius. In May 2025, she preceded Neptune's entry into Aries. In April 2026, she preceded Uranus' entry into Gemini. And lately, on June 13, she preceded Jupiter's entry into Leo. When we look at this progression, we see that all these planets now form a specific layout called a cradle or a tent pattern. This alignment creates a protective, highly creative structure around how you express yourself and connect with others. So, in this lunation, Venus in Leo first forms a sextile with Uranus in Gemini. This connection brings excitement, innovation, desire of change, like a new expression of yourself seeking to emerge, something freer, bolder, more original. Then Venus forms a supportive trine with Neptune in Aries. This is a very inspiring conversation because Neptune acts here as a connection with a higher vision of your future. As if something is beginning to appear on your horizon, sensing the future taking shape. As if your intuition is showing you the direction to take. You can see beyond appearances and project what your life could be. Of course, it won't happen by itself. You have to build it. Neptune here supports Venus, so this gives you confidence and reminds you to stay connected to your heart. And then Venus is opposing retrograde Pluto in Aquarius. This opposition is the tension base of the tent pattern that brings a deep, intense transformation to your creative self-expression, to your romance and personal passion. You are breaking down all patterns of needing external validation or playing a role just to fit in. You want to feel valued and to shine within your community. Some parts of your identity cannot continue the journey. This Venus-Pluton opposition represents the end of old behaviors, old ways of being, of presenting yourself, of valuing yourself. In fact, what is no longer aligned with your future is being pulled away. And Pluton does not negotiate. He comes to burn everything down, raise everything, but it is not a punishment. It is to allow life to take on a healthier, more dynamic, more vital form with who you are now. Pluton transforms, he eliminates what is no longer viable. He removes what no longer accompany your future evolution. This opposition Pluton-Venus will intensify until August, affecting something in your value systems, in your value which are changing, in your identity which is also being reorganized, in your relationship with money, investments as well, or creativity or your place in the world. And this transformation can resemble a loss, an old version of yourself that will try to cling on, that refuses to disappear. But Pluton calls for a true transformation because what is destined to evolve cannot remain static. However, whenever the tension between your personal passions and your social circles become too heavy, the walls of the 10th pattern provide a smooth flowing escape route. With this 10th configuration, you are deeply protected during this time of intense personal and social evolution. So, if you have planets in the first degree of the fixed sign, Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, and Scorpion, this period could be experienced as a real tension between the past and the future, between what you have always been and what you are becoming. We are all arriving at a point of choice, and in the midst of all this tension, it is often a difficult time because we don't yet know what needs to be let go of. We sense that things will have to be released and that new things are emerging. Let's not forget that when Pluto acts, he makes things disappear. He removes things, but it is to get to the heart of the matter and to create something that suits you better, to be more in harmony with yourself. So these conversations to Uranus, Neptune, and Pluton that starts now with Venus will be reactivated in July and August, since after Venus, Jupiter in Leo will arrive July 20 and 21st to sextile Uranus and trine Neptune and oppose Pluton. And on July 26-27, the Sun will do the same thing. And there will be a beautiful Casimir conjunction of Jupiter being in the heart of the Sun in Leo on July 29. Then Mercury will oppose Pluton on August 12. And in extra, the following day on August 13, we have a total solar eclipse in Leo. So you see, we have so many great things happening in the sign of Leo, and all of them will reactivate the 10th configuration like successive waves, each bringing a new layer of understanding, a new stage of transformation. So when we take a step back and look at this new moon as a whole, she represents a call for a major mental cleansing that is clarifying your priorities and telling yourself a new story with the final test of Chiron. You are invited to delve deeper into your emotional world thanks to Mercury in Cancer. Mars in Taurus is there to help you ground yourself. We live in an era where information circulates at incredible speed, but it is from our inner space, from this other intelligence that rests on the capacity to feel, that we can perceive what rings true. It is there that our vision, our inspirations, and our most authentic choices are born. It is from this space that we truly shape our future. So to make the most of this new moon, I invite you to breathe consciously, to walk in nature, to stay connected to the earth, to the ground beneath your feet. There is a great transformative force at work. So in this information-saturated period, it is good to leave the noise of the world behind and rediscover a much larger space within yourself. And few minutes are enough for something to reorganize internally, for the mind to find its natural rhythm, and for you to see what is essential. So have a date, a rendezvous with stillness. Choose consciously to withdraw from the noise, to stop feeding your mind. This can truly shift your inner frequency, allowing you to rediscover the coherence of your heart. This new moon offers a precious moment, that of clear consciousness if we so desire. Each cycle begins with an invisible seed, so during this new moon, take the time to recognize what's seek to grow. Take the time to make room for the new. You have the wind at your back, and you are encouraged to plant that special seed of consciousness. Thank you. Thank you again for your attention, your comments. Thank you for your subscriptions. And of course, I remind you that whenever you feel the calling, you can book an astrology reading online or with me in person. Just send me an email or leave me a message on Messenger. There you go. I wish you a very beautiful new moon in Gemini and see you very soon. May we all walk the path of our hearts with love and light.